They threw the Omega into the fighting ring, she shifted to survive and the Alpha King claimed her. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, back to our main character. Sarah Cole had always known she was different, but it wasn't until today that she fully understood just how much. Born into a world that placed value on strength and dominance, Sarah had always been considered weak, and Omega, the lowest of the pack. With her pale skin, dark eyes, and unremarkable features, she had never felt special. But today, she was being thrust into the one place she had always feared, the fighting ring. The crowd was loud, buzzing with excitement as they waited for the match to begin. Sarah stood at the edge of the ring, her heart racing in her chest. The air was thick with tension, the smell of sweat and dirt overwhelming her senses. She could hear the shouts of the onlookers, their words laced with mockery. She's going to lose. She's nothing but a weak Omega. This should be entertaining. The alpha males and betas surrounding her sneered, their eyes filled with judgment. They saw her as nothing more than an object of amusement. Sarah felt the weight of their eyes on her, the sting of their cruel words sinking deep into her. She had never been able to shift, to change into the wolf form that most of her kind could. That was why she had always been rejected, why she had always been an outcast. But now, she had no choice. The bell rang, signaling the start of the fight. Sarah's opponent, a muscular alpha with dark hair and a cruel smile, advanced toward her, his fists clenched. She had no weapon, no skills to defend herself, but she knew one thing: she had to survive. In that moment, something inside her snapped. Desperation and fear mixed with an instinct she didn't understand, and she felt her body change. Her skin tingled, her bones shifted, and her eyes glowed with a feral light. The world around her slowed as her wolf side emerged for the first time. She was no longer the weak Omega standing in the ring, she was something more. The alpha male before her froze, his eyes widening in shock as he witnessed the transformation. He wasn't expecting her to fight back, let alone shift. Sarah felt a surge of power flow through her, a strength she had never known before. The crowd gasped in astonishment, but it wasn't just Sarah who was shocked. Standing in the shadows of the arena, watching intently, was the Alpha King, Maximus Thornridge. His cold eyes locked onto Sarah, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. Maximus had seen many fights, many shifts, but he had never seen anything like this. Sarah's transformation, the raw power emanating from her, stirred something deep within him. He felt an undeniable pull toward her, a connection that he couldn't ignore. The fight continued, but now it was different. Sarah wasn't just trying to survive, she was fighting to prove her worth. She moved with speed and grace, dodging the Alpha's attacks and landing strikes of her own. Her wolf instincts guided her, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged. Maximus watched as Sarah fought, his gaze never leaving her. He could see the fire in her eyes, the determination that burned within her. He knew then that she was no ordinary Omega. She was something destined for greatness. As the fight came to an end, Sarah stood victorious, her opponent lying unconscious at her feet. The crowd fell silent, stunned by what they had just witnessed. Maximus stepped forward, his voice cold and commanding. "She is mine." His words echoed through the arena, a declaration of ownership and power. Sarah's heart raced as she looked up at the Alpha King, his intense gaze locking with hers. In that moment, she knew her life was about to change forever. Maximus Thornridge, the Alpha King, stood tall amidst the sea of spectators, his piercing gaze never leaving Sarah Cole. Her transformation had taken him by surprise, but it had also ignited something deep within him, something he couldn't ignore. As the crowd slowly began to murmur, the whispers of disbelief and awe filled the air. Maximus's mind raced, but he remained motionless, watching Sarah with an intensity that made her heart skip a beat. He was no ordinary alpha, and this was no ordinary fight. He had seen many battles, but none like this. He had witnessed countless displays of power, Yet Sarah's strength was something different. She was a force to be reckoned with. As she stood over her defeated opponent, breathing heavily, her wolf form still evident in her eyes, she could feel the pull between them. It was as though her soul recognized him, as though fate had led them to this very moment. Sarah had never felt this way before, not even when she had been part of a pack. The connection was undeniable, but it terrified her. The Alpha King's gaze softened, just for a moment, as he took a step toward her. "You've proven your strength, Omega," Maximus's voice echoed across the arena, deep and commanding. "But your journey is far from over." Sarah blinked, unsure of how to respond. She had just fought to survive, to prove her worth in a world that had always looked down on her. Now, it seemed, she was being claimed not just as a fighter, but as something more. Her heart raced at the thought. She had no idea what it meant to be claimed by an Alpha King. Was it a promise? A curse? "Come with me," Maximus continued, his tone softer now, though still filled with authority. "You've earned your place by my side." The words hung in the air like a challenge, a promise, and an unspoken invitation. Sarah hesitated. She had spent her entire life being told she was nothing, weak, unworthy of respect or love. But something about Maximus's presence made her question everything she had ever known. The Alpha King wasn't just offering her a place at his side, he was offering her a chance to be something more. It was a moment of reckoning, a decision that would change the course of her life forever. She glanced around the arena, her mind spinning. The crowd was still in shock, their eyes wide as they watched the Alpha King and the Omega interact. They had never seen such a public display of power and respect, especially not for someone like Sarah. The whispers continued, but they were different now, filled with curiosity and awe. Sarah turned back to Maximus, her heart pounding in her chest. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Maximus studied her for a long moment, his gaze intense and calculating. "I want you to stand by me," he said simply. "I want you to be my mate." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine at his words. It wasn't just a fight that had changed her life, it was this moment, this declaration, that would shape her future. The weight of his words settled in her chest, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged. "Your journey has just begun, Omega," Maximus said, stepping closer. "And I will be there every step of the way." Sarah's mind was still reeling, but she knew one thing for certain, her life would never be the same. She was no longer the weak, discarded Omega she had once been. She was something more. And with the Alpha King by her side, she would discover just how much she was capable of. The crowd erupted into whispers and gasps as the two of them stood together, the Alpha King and the Omega, bound by fate in a world that had never been kind to her. As they walked out of the arena together, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation building inside her. The Alpha King had claimed her, and now, she had to find out what that truly meant. What would life be like by his side? What challenges awaited them both? She didn't know yet, but one thing was clear, Sarah Cole, the Omega, was about to become a force that no one could ignore. Sarah followed Maximus through the grand corridors of the Blackwood Citadel, her heart still racing from the events in the arena. Her mind was overwhelmed, her thoughts scattered in 1,000 directions. She had never imagined this, never dreamed that her life would take such a drastic turn. The Alpha King, a man of untold power and strength, had chosen her. But why? What did he see in her? Was she truly worthy of standing by his side? The walls of the citadel towered above her, their dark stone a stark contrast to the soft light of the evening sky. The air inside was cool, heavy with the weight of centuries of history. Maximus walked ahead, his presence commanding and assured, his every step radiating authority. Sarah tried to steady her breath, the sound of her footsteps echoing in the silence. She had always felt invisible, weak, but now she was walking beside the most powerful man in the kingdom. The realization both excited and terrified her. "You have questions," Maximus said without turning to look at her. His voice was deep and calm, as though he had already anticipated her thoughts. Sarah swallowed, unsure of how to respond. She had so many questions about him, about the bond between them, about what would happen next, but she wasn't sure if she was ready to voice them yet. I don't know what to ask, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Maximus stopped in front of a large door, turning to face her. Ask whatever is on your mind, Sarah, he said, his gaze unwavering. There is nothing to fear here. You are safe. Sarah hesitated, then nodded. She had spent her life being told to keep quiet, to accept her place in the world. But now, with Maximus standing before her, she felt a strange sense of freedom. She could ask questions. She could demand answers. Why me? She asked softly. Why did you choose me? Maximus's expression softened, his usual sternness fading for a moment. Because I saw something in you, he said quietly. Strength. Courage. A fire that most people overlook. You are not just an Omega, Sarah. You are more than that. Sarah's heart skipped a beat at his words. But I'm weak, she protested, her voice shaking. I can't even shift. I've never been able to. Maximus stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. Strength is not just about shifting or fighting. It's about what you carry inside. It's about how you face the world when it tries to break you. And you, Sarah, you have faced the world with grace and resilience. That is what makes you strong. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as his words sank in. She had never thought of herself as strong. She had always felt like an outsider, like someone who didn't belong. But Maximus's words stirred something deep inside her, something she had never allowed herself to acknowledge. She wasn't weak. She was capable of more than she realized. I'm not asking you to be perfect, Maximus continued, his voice steady and reassuring. I'm asking you to stand with me. To fight beside me. Together, we can change the world. His words were bold, filled with a sense of purpose that made Sarah's heart race. She had always lived in the shadows, always been told she wasn't enough. But now, Maximus was offering her a chance to step into the light. To be more than what she had been. What do you want from me? She asked, her voice trembling with uncertainty. Maximus's gaze softened once more, and he reached out, his hand brushing against hers. I want you to be my mate, Sarah. To share this journey with me. To lead beside me. His touch was gentle, but it sent a shiver down her spine. For the first time, Sarah felt like she was no longer alone. She wasn't just an Omega anymore. She was someone with a purpose, with a future. And for the first time in her life, she believed that maybe, just maybe, she was worthy of it. The door behind Maximus creaked open, and he gestured for Sarah to enter. She took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. This was her new life now. And though the uncertainty still lingered, she knew one thing for certain, she wasn't the same girl who had stepped into the fighting ring. She had been claimed not just by the Alpha King, but by her own strength, her own destiny. And whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them with him by her side. Maximus led Sarah through the labyrinth of the Blackwood Citadel, his steady pace never faltering, his powerful presence almost tangible in the heavy silence. Sarah walked beside him, her mind spinning, her heart still racing from the weight of everything that had happened in the past few hours. She had shifted. She had fought. And now, the Alpha King had claimed her. As they approached a large set of double doors, Maximus paused, turning to her. This is where you will stay, for now, he said, his voice low but filled with a quiet strength. Sarah couldn't help but look around, taking in the vastness of the citadel. She had never been inside such a grand place. The walls were adorned with tapestries depicting battles and royal figures from centuries past, the floors covered in rich, dark wood. It's beautiful, Sarah whispered, her gaze sweeping across the room. Maximus smiled, a rare and genuine expression that softened his usually stern features. You'll get used to it, he said. But you don't have to be alone here, Sarah. You never will be again. The words hit her harder than she expected. She had spent so many years alone, cast aside by everyone, never feeling like she belonged anywhere. But now, with Maximus, she was not only seen, she was wanted. She didn't know how to respond, so she simply nodded, following him inside. The room was spacious, with a large fireplace on one side and an enormous bed covered in fine linens. The furnishings were elegant but not extravagant, a reflection of the king's understated taste. The soft glow of candlelight filled the room, casting warm shadows across the stone walls. Maximus moved toward the fireplace, his back straight and commanding. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the chair beside the fire. "We need to talk about what comes next." Sarah hesitated for a moment before obeying, sitting down and letting the warmth of the fire soothe her tense muscles. Maximus, however, didn't sit. He stood near the hearth, his eyes on her. "You're not just my mate, Sarah," he began, his voice steady, "you're my partner. And together, we will lead the pack. You will have power. You will have a voice." His words were heavy with meaning, and Sarah couldn't help but feel a flicker of doubt. She had never been powerful. She had never had a voice. But Maximus was right about one thing: she wasn't the same girl who had stepped into the arena hours ago. "But I've never led anyone," Sarah said softly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I don't know how to be a leader." Maximus's gaze softened, and he finally moved to sit beside her. "That's why I'm here, Sarah," he said, his tone gentle but firm. "To guide you. To help you find your strength. But you have it inside you already. I saw it in you when you fought. That fire is what will carry us through." Sarah swallowed, trying to push down the unease in her chest. She wanted to believe him, more than anything. But it was hard to imagine herself as anything more than the weak, overlooked Omega she had always been. Maximus reached out, taking her hand in his. His touch was warm, reassuring. "You are everything I need, Sarah," he said, his voice quiet but sincere. "And I promise you, together, we will rule this kingdom. You are not alone anymore." His words, so full of promise, filled Sarah with a strange, unfamiliar warmth. She had never known someone who believed in her like this. It was both terrifying and exhilarating. For the first time, she allowed herself to hope. She allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could be more than she ever thought possible. "I don't know if I'm ready," she admitted, her voice soft. "But I will try. For you. For us." Maximus's grip on her hand tightened, a small but genuine smile forming on his lips. "That's all I ask." As the fire crackled in the hearth, the silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It was filled with the weight of the promise they had just made, a promise that would change the course of their lives forever. Sarah didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear: with Maximus by her side, she would never be alone again. The days that followed Sarah's arrival at the Blackwood Citadel were a blur of new experiences, challenges, and unexpected moments. She had never been part of something so grand, so alive with purpose. Maximus, the Alpha King, had made it clear that she was not just a mate, she was his equal, his partner. As they worked together, he showed her the ropes of ruling, the complexities of the pack's politics, and the weight of the responsibilities that came with leadership. Though Sarah still struggled with self-doubt, she couldn't deny the way Maximus believed in her, and in his belief, she began to find her own strength. Maximus had given her a room in the citadel, a space that was hers and hers alone. The walls were adorned with dark tapestries depicting the history of his kingdom, and the windows provided a view of the sprawling forest beyond. It was beautiful, but more than that, it was hers. Every morning, she woke up to the soft glow of sunlight streaming through the trees, and every night, the citadel felt like a fortress protecting her from the world outside. But despite the beauty of her surroundings, Sarah knew there was much more to learn, much more to do. She wasn't sure if she was ready, but she was trying. One evening, after spending hours in the library with Maximus, she returned to her room, exhausted but determined. The door opened with a soft creak, and she was greeted by the familiar warmth of her space. As she entered, her eyes caught something on the desk, a letter. It was sealed with the royal crest. Her heart skipped a beat as she picked it up, tearing open the seal with trembling fingers. Inside was a message from the elders of the pack. The letter was an invitation for her to stand before the Council of Alphas and declare her position as the future Luna of the Blackwood pack. The words felt heavy in her hands, and the weight of the responsibility they held settled on her shoulders. Sarah knew this was coming, but she hadn't expected it so soon. The council was made up of the most powerful alphas in the kingdom, and for her to stand before them was no small matter. She felt a knot form in her stomach. Could she do this? Was she ready to take on such a monumental role? The sound of footsteps behind her broke her thoughts. Maximus stood in the doorway, his silhouette framed by the light of the hallway. "You received the letter," he said, his voice calm but carrying the weight of understanding. Sarah nodded, her hands still holding the letter tightly. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I'm ready to stand before them, to be the Luna they expect me to be." Maximus walked toward her, his expression unreadable. He stopped just in front of her, his presence towering and reassuring. "You are ready," he said, his voice filled with quiet conviction. "I chose you for a reason, Sarah. You are strong, intelligent, and capable. The council will see that." Sarah swallowed, the fear in her chest beginning to ease at his words. Maximus took a step closer, his hand gently resting on her shoulder. "This is your moment," he continued. "The future of our pack is in your hands. And I will be right beside you every step of the way." Sarah felt a surge of gratitude fill her heart. Maximus had always believed in her, even when she couldn't believe in herself. With him by her side, she felt like maybe she could do this. Maybe she could step into the role that was expected of her and more. She took a deep breath, letting the words sink in. She wasn't alone. And that made all the difference. "Okay," she said, her voice firmer now. "I'll do it. I'll stand before them and show them who I am." Maximus smiled, his gaze softening. "That's my Luna," he said, his voice filled with pride. Sarah felt a warmth spread through her chest. She wasn't just Maximus's mate. She was a part of something greater now. The weight of the responsibility was still there, but for the first time, it didn't feel as heavy. With Maximus at her side, she was ready to face whatever came next. The day of the council meeting arrived far sooner than Sarah had anticipated. The Blackwood Citadel seemed even grander now, the stone walls and towering spires casting long shadows as she walked through the halls with Maximus at her side. The weight of her upcoming task settled on her shoulders like an invisible cloak. She had never been one to stand in the spotlight, but today, the spotlight was unavoidable. The council chamber, located deep within the citadel, was a vast room, its high ceilings adorned with intricate carvings of ancient battles and royal symbols. The long table in the center was surrounded by the most powerful alphas from all corners of the kingdom. As Sarah entered the room with Maximus, the eyes of the council immediately turned toward them. She felt her heart race, her nerves threatening to overwhelm her, but Maximus's steady presence beside her anchored her. "You are not alone," he whispered softly, his gaze never leaving the council. The room fell silent as they made their way to the front, where the council members sat in a semicircle, their expressions stern and expectant. Sarah's gaze flickered from one face to another, her pulse quickening as the weight of their stares pressed against her. The Alpha King stood beside her, his posture regal, exuding a calm authority that she found herself trying to emulate. "This is Sarah Cole," Maximus's voice rang out, strong and unwavering. "She is my chosen mate, and the future Luna of the Blackwood Pack." The declaration hung in the air, the council members exchanging glances, their faces unreadable. Sarah's stomach fluttered at the thought of being so openly acknowledged. It felt surreal, but she knew this was her moment. She wasn't just standing beside Maximus, she was claiming her place. The first to speak was Alpha Reagan, an older man with a sharp gaze and an even sharper tongue. "She is an Omega," he said, his voice laced with doubt. "What makes you think she is capable of leading our pack, Maximus?" The question stung, but Sarah refused to shrink under his scrutiny. She had been judged her entire life for being an Omega, for being seen as weak and unworthy. But now, with the eyes of the council on her, she felt a fire ignite within her. "I may be an Omega," she said, her voice steady, "but I am more than that. I am strong in ways that cannot be measured by rank or title. I've fought for my place in this world, and I will fight for this pack." Her words echoed in the chamber, the silence that followed heavy with anticipation. Maximus's gaze softened as he looked down at her, pride filling his eyes. For the first time in her life, Sarah felt like she truly belonged. The other council members remained quiet, their expressions mixed, but Alpha Reagan remained unmoved. "Words are easy," he said dismissively. "But actions speak louder. Prove to us that you have what it takes to lead." The challenge hung in the air, and for a moment, Sarah felt her confidence waver. But then she remembered Maximus's words. She was strong. She could do this. "I'll prove it," she said, her voice firm. "But not with words. With actions." A murmur rippled through the room, and for the first time, Sarah felt like the council was beginning to take her seriously. Maximus stepped forward, his presence commanding the room. "Sarah has already proven herself," he said. "Her strength is not something you can see at first glance, but it is there. I have seen it, and I stand by her. She is not just my mate, she is the future of this pack." The council members exchanged glances, their faces still unreadable, but there was a shift in the air, a subtle change that Sarah couldn't quite place. The Alpha King's support was unwavering, and it gave her the courage to stand tall, to face them with the confidence she had never allowed herself to feel before. "You have made your point," Alpha Reagan finally said, his tone begrudging. "But the council will need time to consider this. We cannot make such decisions hastily." Sarah nodded, knowing that this was only the beginning. The room was still heavy with uncertainty, but Sarah knew one thing for certain: she was no longer the Omega who had stepped into the fighting ring. She was someone who had earned her place at the table. She had Maximus by her side, and together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they left the council chamber, Sarah felt a sense of resolve settle within her. The road ahead would not be easy, but she was ready. For the first time in her life, she believed that she could truly make a difference. Days turned into weeks, and Sarah found herself slowly adapting to her new life alongside Maximus at the Blackwood Citadel. The weight of the responsibilities that came with being the future Luna of the Blackwood Pack was overwhelming, but with each passing day, she felt a bit more capable. Maximus was always by her side, offering guidance and support, but there were still moments when Sarah doubted herself. The council had yet to fully accept her, and while their cold indifference had started to shift, she knew the road to their approval would be long. One afternoon, as Sarah was walking through the Citadel's gardens, she felt a gentle breeze kiss her skin. The sun was beginning to set, casting a soft, golden hue across the expansive grounds. She paused for a moment to take it all in, feeling the weight of the day lift just slightly. The gardens were a place of peace, a small sanctuary away from the hustle of daily life. The flowers bloomed in vibrant colors, and the scent of jasmine filled the air, reminding her of simpler times. But as she stood there, lost in thought, she heard footsteps behind her. Turning, she saw Maximus approaching, his dark eyes fixed on her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You seem deep in thought," he said, his voice soft but filled with curiosity. Sarah smiled faintly, feeling a mixture of comfort and unease. "I was just thinking about how much things have changed," she admitted. "I never imagined I would be here, in this place, with so much responsibility on my shoulders." Maximus stopped in front of her, his presence both reassuring and commanding. "Change is inevitable," he said, his voice steady. "But you've faced it with strength, Sarah. You've proven to everyone that you are more than just an Omega. You are capable of leading." Sarah felt a spark of warmth at his words, but doubt still lingered. "I'm not sure they all believe that," she replied, glancing down at her hands. "The council is still unsure. They've yet to truly accept me, and I don't know how long I can keep up this facade." Maximus stepped closer, his hand gently resting on her shoulder. "You don't need their approval, Sarah. You already have mine. And that is what matters." His words, as always, brought her comfort, but a part of her still struggled to accept them. She had spent so much of her life being rejected, being told she wasn't enough. It was hard to believe that someone like Maximus, the most powerful alpha in the land, could see her as his equal. "I just want to do right by you and the pack," she whispered, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I don't want to fail." Maximus's gaze softened, and he took her hand in his, holding it firmly. "You won't fail. You are not alone in this. We are in this together. His words were a promise, a vow that he would always be by her side, supporting her. Sarah looked up at him, feeling the truth of his words sink in. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could do this. She had never been given the chance to prove her worth before, but now, with Maximus, she had the opportunity to show not only the council but herself what she was capable of. "Thank you," she said softly, squeezing his hand. Maximus gave her a reassuring smile, his eyes filled with pride. "You don't need to thank me," he said. "You are mine, Sarah, and I will always stand by you. No matter what." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a beautiful glow across the sky, Sarah felt a sense of resolve settle within her. She wasn't the same girl who had stepped into the arena weeks ago. She wasn't just the weak Omega. She was strong, and with Maximus by her side, she knew she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in her life, Sarah felt ready to face it head-on. Days passed, and with each new dawn, Sarah found herself growing more accustomed to her life as the future Luna of the Blackwood Pack. She was no longer the uncertain Omega who had entered the Citadel months ago. The weight of leadership still pressed on her shoulders, but she had come to realize that she was capable of bearing it. With Maximus at her side, she had the confidence to face every challenge head-on, but there was still one looming task ahead: gaining the trust of the pack. The council's approval was essential, but Sarah knew it wasn't going to be easy. She had to prove herself in ways they hadn't yet seen. One afternoon, Maximus approached Sarah with an invitation. "The council is gathering again tomorrow," he said, his expression serious. "They've requested your presence." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. It was time. The council wanted to see her again, and this time, it wouldn't be for a simple declaration. She had to show them that she was more than just an Omega, she was the Luna they needed. "What do they want from me this time?" Sarah asked, a hint of uncertainty creeping into her voice. Maximus looked at her with quiet understanding. "They want to see your leadership. They want to know you can lead the pack, not just stand beside me." His words hit her like a bolt of lightning. She had never truly seen herself as a leader, but now, she had no choice. It was her moment to shine. The next day, Sarah stood before the council, her nerves simmering beneath her calm exterior. The room was filled with alphas, their faces serious and unreadable. As she walked into the room with Maximus by her side, she felt their eyes on her. They weren't just looking at the woman beside the Alpha King anymore, they were looking at the woman who would one day rule beside him. Maximus stood behind her, his presence a solid support that gave her strength. She could feel his gaze on her back, steady and reassuring. "Today, we discuss the future of the Blackwood Pack," Alpha Reagan said, his voice cold but filled with authority. "And we want to hear from you, Sarah Cole. What makes you worthy of leading this pack?" Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she stepped forward. The moment had come. She could feel the weight of their expectations, the pressure of the task before her, but she stood tall. "I am worthy," she began, her voice steady and filled with conviction. "Not because of my birth, not because of my rank, but because of my strength. The strength I've fought to find within myself, and the strength I will bring to this pack." Her words echoed in the chamber, the silence that followed heavy with anticipation. Sarah could feel the eyes of the council on her, but she refused to let fear control her. "I will lead not with fear, but with respect," she continued. "I will fight for every member of this pack, and I will protect them as fiercely as I protect what I hold dear." For a moment, the room was silent. Sarah stood before them, her chest rising and falling with each breath. The council members exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. But Sarah didn't look away. She had said what she needed to say, and now it was up to them to decide if she was worthy. Maximus stepped forward, his voice low but filled with strength. "Sarah has proven herself time and time again," he said, his gaze locked on the council. "She is my mate, my partner, and together, we will lead this pack into a new era." The council's silence stretched on, but Sarah didn't waver. She had spoken from the heart, and now she would wait for their response. Finally, Alpha Reagan spoke. We have heard your words, Sarah Cole, he said, his tone less dismissive than before. And we will consider them. You have shown strength, but we will need to see more. Your actions will determine your place here. Sarah nodded, knowing that her journey was far from over. The council's approval was still uncertain, but for the first time, she didn't feel defeated. She had spoken her truth, and now, it was time to prove it through her actions. As she left the council chamber, Maximus walked beside her, his presence grounding her. You did well, he said, his voice soft but proud. Sarah smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She wasn't the same girl who had walked into the citadel months ago. She had found her voice, and now, it was time to lead. The days following Sarah's declaration to the council were filled with a quiet tension. The weight of her responsibility as the future Luna was heavier than ever, but with each passing day, she grew more certain of her place beside Maximus. The Blackwood Citadel had become her home, and the pack, though still hesitant, was slowly beginning to accept her. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Maximus had been unwavering in his support, his presence a constant reassurance as they navigated the complex world of leadership together. Sarah spent her days learning, meeting with the pack's leaders, and slowly earning the respect of those who had doubted her. The council had yet to make a final decision, but Sarah knew that only time and action would prove her worth. One evening, as the sun began to set over the citadel, Sarah found herself standing on the balcony of her room, gazing out at the vast landscape before her. The sky was painted in hues of orange and pink, and the sound of the wind rustling through the trees filled the air. It was a moment of peace in a world that was constantly shifting. Maximus joined her, his tall figure silhouetted against the fading light. I've been thinking, Sarah said, her voice soft but filled with resolve. The council is waiting for me to prove myself, and I know it's not just about words. It's about actions. Maximus stood beside her, his presence solid and comforting. You've already proven yourself, Sarah, he said quietly. But I understand what you mean. The pack needs to see that you can lead. Sarah nodded, her mind racing with ideas. She had always felt like an outsider, but now she had a chance to show the pack that she was more than just the Omega they had once dismissed. I've been thinking about a way to show them, she continued, her voice steady now. I need to do something for the pack, something that will show them my commitment. But I don't know where to start. Maximus turned to face her, his eyes filled with understanding. You already have the qualities they need, Sarah. It's just a matter of finding the right way to demonstrate them. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her decision settle over her. I want to lead by example, she said, her voice firm. I'll find a way to show them that I'm capable of protecting this pack, of leading them with strength and compassion. Maximus gave her a small smile, his pride evident in his gaze. I know you will, he said. You're not just my Luna, you're the future of this pack. His words filled her with warmth, a sense of purpose she hadn't known she was capable of feeling. The path ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time, Sarah felt ready to face it. She had Maximus by her side, and together, they would lead the Blackwood pack into a new era. The next morning, Sarah began her plan. She knew that the pack needed to see that she was willing to fight for them, just as much as she had fought for herself. She started by meeting with the pack's warriors, learning about their struggles and concerns, and offering her support. Slowly but surely, she earned their trust. It wasn't easy, there were many who still doubted her, but Sarah remained steadfast. One afternoon, after a long training session, Sarah found herself standing before the pack's training grounds, watching the warriors practice. She felt a sense of pride in what she had accomplished, but there was still so much to do. She had proven herself in small ways, but now she needed to show them that she could be the leader they needed. As she stood there, Maximus approached, his strong presence a comforting reminder that she was not alone in this. You're doing well, he said, his voice filled with approval. The pack is starting to see your strength. Sarah turned to him, her eyes filled with determination. I'm not finished yet, she said, her voice steady and resolute. I won't stop until they see me as their Luna, until I prove to them that I can lead. Maximus smiled, his pride evident in his gaze. I've always known you had the heart of a leader, Sarah. You've come so far, and this is just the beginning. Sarah nodded, feeling a sense of determination surge within her. The journey was far from over, but she was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. With Maximus by her side, she knew that she could face anything. She was no longer the weak, dismissed Omega. She was Sarah Cole, the future Luna of the Blackwood Pack, and she would prove herself to them all.